listeners. Welcome to the Lone Screenplay Nominee Podcast, where we talk about films that were solely nominated for an Oscar in the writing categories. I'm your host, Matthew Anderson, and today we have Jaylan Salah. Sorry.
Perfect.
Oh, okay. That works enough.
That was good.
Sorry. Welcome to the podcast, Jaylan. How are you doing today? And
Today
sorry for
I'm.
looking up your pronunciation.
It's actually lovely. I'm doing great. I just cooked a great meal. I finished watching two of my favorite films. I'm feeling good about the world actually today, as opposed to many days.
Now, when you say you just finished your two favorite films, as in just right now.
As in, just caught up with some of them, some of the other parts of them, because I usually I watch The Apartment a lot because it's a great movie, and I just Hiroshima Mon Amour is kind of like my safe place. So it's something that I go
Oh,
to often, kind of like In the Mood for Love and other Nouvelle Vague films. So yeah, I finish them because I just like watching bits and pieces and clips and snippets every now and then.
I gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah, because the way you worded it, you were almost like just now. I just finished. Both of them back to back, and I'm like, oh wait. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we'll get to those movies in a moment. We'll get into our typical questions. It's the same outline that I've already had for my other guests, and I have the same questions for you, Jylan. So the first one would be, what exactly it is you do for a living, so to speak, or is there anything you do for fun outside of being on a guest for the episode?
I'm a translator, so I translate books for a living. I used to be I graduated pharmacy school. I used to be a pharmacist, and then I shifted into full time copywriting, editing, and translation career. Then I realized no, what I love is just translating books. So I translate books, mostly psychology books and business and stuff like that, for publishing houses. This is my job. What I do for fun is a lot of things. I like to embark on artistic experiences, adventures. I love yoga. I love meditation. I love all kinds of, Reiki and healing stuff. I love just to do, pottery and painting on, fabric and stuff like that for fun too. But also, I'm mainly a film critic. I write for In Session Film, for Geek Vibes Nation, for Keith Loves Movies. I love interviewing artists and people behind the camera. This is what I do all my life.
I see. Um, yeah, no, I had forgotten. Yeah, because you were recently on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, as well, talking about the infamous Joker, and I'd forgotten you are you also mentioned on there that you were you translate books as well, so, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So yeah, and for the record, if you guys haven't listened to that episode yet, I suggest you do when you get a chance. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's how. Well, it was through a mutual friend of ours who was on the podcast for Stand By Me. That's how we got connected. And then I remember, the day after we recorded that episode, I got up in the morning, I got a direct message from you through Twitter, and you're like, I was told that you were in need of a guest, so I'm available. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm in the list, and that's how that came to be.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, nice. And so I know you've already mentioned. Guys, I'm sorry to spoil the fun here for Jylan here, but we already know what your favorite movie is. And if you haven't seen the episode, you should know what it is. But is there a favorite genre of film that you like to watch as a whole?
Definitely erotic thrillers, art
Okay.
house experimental films, action, like crime noir films, things like that. Of course, all films dark and macabre and bloody and violent. These are my favorite genres.
And then I'm looking through. What was the movie that was by Adrian Lynn that we had? Deep Water.
Ooh, I love
um,
Adrian.
yeah, Adrian Lynn. He did Fatal Attraction, I believe.
He has an
And
indecent proposal. All those
yeah,
crazy films. Flashdance, I think, because I love it too. Yeah, I think he did Flashdance. Hopefully he did because I like
yep,
this film. Yeah.
yep, yeah. Flashdance, he
Mm.
did. Um, Yeah, funny enough, that was the movie that was an influence on films like Footloose, Purple Rain, and Top Gun in terms of their like style of filmmaking, with that music video
Yes,
aesthetics quality. But yeah. So, anyways,
very lovely.
um, but yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much like, yeah, just like the general questions I had that we usually go through with the show. So without further ado, I guess we'll just dive right into our episode discussion for 1959 Hiroshima Mon Amour. This won't be a bulletin beat a, this won't be a beat by beat bulletin presentation like you hear on other channels, but we will be discussing major spoilers for our talk. If you haven't seen the film yet and want to hear our full thoughts on it, watch the film first and then come back to hear us talk about it. And I apologize to France if I mispronunciate some of these people's names. I've never really studied the language, and yeah, so just getting it out of the way. So here we go. So in 1954, while Alan Rene was editing Agnes Varda's film La Pointe Courte, I believe it was how it's pronounced. He was reluctant to work on it because it was so nearly the film he wanted to make himself, and the film's narrative structure inspired Hiroshima Mon Amour. According to James Monaco, who I believe I'm looking through. Yeah, so James Monaco was an American film critic who's no longer with us anymore. Said that Rene was originally commissioned to make a short documentary about the atomic bomb, but spent several months confused about how to proceed because he did not want to recreate his 1956 Holocaust drama documentary, I should say, Night and Fog, which had won an Academy Award. He later went on to his producer and joked that the film could not be done unless Marguerite Duras.
Margaret Duras, huh?
Okay, yeah, I might have mucked that up. So, was involved in writing the screenplay. The film was a surprising co-production by companies from both France and Japan. I looked more into it a bit more from thanks to my buddy from the One Inch Barrier podcast, Juan Carlos Ollano, to ask if this was even considered for submission from either France or Japan, and apparently it wasn't. And part of that, I think, was because of the rules that stipulated within country, and then official languages, all that stuff. So it was kind of like, yeah, okay, it wasn't able to compete for international film at all, period. So, anyways, so the producer stipulated that one main character must be French and the other Japanese, and also required that the film be shot in both countries, employing film crews compromising technicians from each. So that's all I was able to find, mostly on the production production details regarding with Hiroshima Mon Amour, and because of its sensitive subject matter of nuclear bombs and to avoid upsetting the U.S. government, Hiroshima Mon Amour was not selected as the Palme d'Or winner at the 12th Cannes Film Festival, which, by the way, was 1959, is where it's screened. And I'm pretty sure that's why it's known as like a 1959 movie rather than a 1960s film. And also it had premiered, it went to France, and then it went to Japan in June of that year. However, it did win the Free Presse International Critics Prize at the festival alongside the Grand Prix at the Belgian Film Critics Association in 1960. The film was also received. The film also received a New York Film Critics Circle win for foreign language film, was in National Board Review's top 5 foreign films list, and got a Directors Guild nod for Alan Rene. Marguerite also received the film's lone nomination in original screenplay, but lost to Billy Wilder's The Apartment, which you had already brought up for what we'll be talking about when we get to the awards section of the show. As far as what the logline is, it's just a quick summary. It's French. It revolves around a French actress filming an anti-war film in Hiroshima has an affair with a married Japanese architect as they share the differing perspectives on war. So that's pretty much what the story is in terms of what this is about. I should also mention as well that this was technically it brought international attention to the new movement in French cinema and is widely considered to be one of the most influential films of the French New Wave. Uh, in that it was, I talked a bit about this in 400 Blows. If you want to know more about it, go on to that episode and you'll learn a bit more from what the French New Wave is. I'm pretty sure I did for that episode. But yeah, it was essentially like an experimental type of filmmaking used by French filmmakers. So you had Francois Truffaut, Jean-Luc Godard, Agnes Varda, all these filmmakers trying out different things, not just in how they're telling their story, but also in terms of how editing is done, how to tell a story, using, different techniques overall. So yeah, so that's pretty much all I had for production notes. So obviously, let's just cut the wire on this and get right into it. I wanted to ask, when I offered you a chance, as I said, to be on the podcast, I gave you the list of films, and this, I believe, was one of the films you had wanted to cover for the show. Why was it that this, out of all the films I gave you, what was it that made this one stand out to you the most, other than being, a comfort film for you, so to speak?
I love this style of filmmaking. First of all, it's a French film, but it feels like a Japanese film. Like, it gives me all the vibes of certain Japanese filmmakers like Ozu, like Oshima. It has this Japanese style. Even the opening scene with sand falling on both bodies, or I don't know if it's sand or if it's soap. It reminded me of another great Japanese film that I love, Women in the Dunes. The idea of just skin, bodies, and then you have something fall on them, and it's an extended scene. Like, you don't know where you're going. You don't really care where you're going. It's just there. I think cinema of the senses. This is what I would call this film, because it has a lot of brutality. It shows a lot of destruction, even of flesh, of skin, of people, but at the same time it also shows the fusion of two bodies as one. It shows the fusion of souls. It shows some very intimate, sensual moments between two lovers, which is something I usually associate with French films. Even, non-nouvelle vague, new French wave films, kinds of films like Claude Chabrol, for example, and est une femme, like Vivre pour vivre. Films where it's like all about those feelings, those sensations, those intricate, complicated relationships. Many of the Godard films, of course. So I love films about a man and a woman. I love that they're man and woman. There are no names. There is nothing. They're just two people kind of like talking, and as if they're sending imaginary letters to each other, having sex, like just discussing stuff, existing in a way. I think every other detail in the film is irrelevant, because what matters to me the most is this exchange of feelings, of state of being. So these are, like, as I told you, my favorite genre, experimental art house stuff. Regardless of, like the anti-war, yes, of course, it's very important, but I think what matters most is the vessel in which it is outlined or carried out.
Well, the other thing I also want to bring up is it's a little bit similar to Past Lives, only in that there's no real antagonist, in that the antagonist is time. And that these two characters, they don't really have that much long to be together, so to speak, just because they have to go off in their own lives. Like, she has to be in her own world as an actress for a little film, and then I think it was for a documentary, I think it was, that she had to be a part of. And the man is a married Japanese architect, and I also find it very odd that you're well, not odd, but like weird timing that you chose it, especially when we're about to get another film that's about an architect called The Brutalist coming out this fall.
Wonderful.
So I thought that's something I'm like, oh yeah, that is something where you could tie back into the show. So this was my first time I'd seen the movie, and I failed to ask if you'd seen this plenty of times before, or I assume this is like your at least second watch, or
Definitely more than once.
okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember when was the first time you saw the film?
Definitely about, what, 2011, 2012, something like that. My beginning of cinephile years. When I was
Oh
just
wow.
discovering cinephilia, discovering cinema, and meeting up with, like local cinephiles, local film lovers, film critics, and us sharing, like our opinions, what should we watch, them opening my eyes to many, many foreign films, other than, probably my upbringing was kind of odd too, because I would watch a lot of foreign films because my mom and my dad loved films so much. So I watched like Italian cinema, French cinema at a very young age. American cinema, of course, was a staple of our household, although we are Egyptians, so Arabic films are like our main supposedly films. So yeah, I would just be open to a lot of experimentation and stuff, but my years into cinephilia, into film criticism, even opened my eyes further into the more artsy, independent line of things. So this came during that time, and I think I remember watching it. It was a very, very gloomy Alexandrian day on my own, on my laptop. I had the DVD from one of my friends, and it was just spectacular. I was in love and I was crying so much because I felt a lot of things. But now that I visited it, I'm less emotionally reactive to it, but very, very still entranced by it because I love the style of directing. I even love the script. I love everything. I love Emmanuelle Riva so much. And Ishida, what's the name of the actor? I don't want to fuck it up.
Uh,
E.G. Okada, or
yep.
I hope I'm
Yuji
saying it
Okada.
correctly. So definitely, I really like them, but especially Emmanuelle, I think, because I feel like the way she words the script is just beautiful to me.
And apparently, before he became an actor, he served in the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II and was a miner and traveling salesman.
Wow.
So that's interesting.
Could
Unfortunately, he's
be.
no longer with us because he had died in 1955 from heart failure.
Oh, he must have not been old. Why did his
Yeah,
heart fail? Poor thing. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah. So this is the first time I'd seen the movie. I make a point to not tell my guests my thoughts on it, even if
Why?
I've already. Because I just want to get like a genuine reaction out of them, if like keep them on suspense of like, oh, what does he think of the movie. um I thought it was okay. I thought I'll give you, the performances are actually pretty good. Like Emmanuelle Riva is like really, really good in the movie, and if nothing else, I want to see more of her work. I know that she was nominated for an Oscar and even won a BAFTA for Amour, but I'll get around to that movie down the road. And the cinematography is quite beautiful. Like
Beautiful.
there's a lot of stunning shots in the movie, especially in the first 15 minutes or so. In fact, I
Oh,
was actually a little surprised. It was like a fair amount of it was like, there's a lot of like voiceover narration, so to speak, over montage editing, and we're not really getting a chance to, uh, so to speak, of like without ever showing their faces, so to speak. But we still feel within the conversation of these people, so to speak, and it just shows you how good of an performance these two were, and so I really like that a lot, and really for me, like I was fine. Like these kind of stories are just kind of hit or like in terms of the presentation, it's very hit or miss with me in that sometimes they work really well. Cleo from 5 to 7 is a film that surprisingly I remember
it's
worked for me a lot.
amazing.
And I remember watching that in film class, and I think I've already said this before on the podcast, but I'll say it again. That was a movie that at a certain point I was kind of bored by it, but I was like, yeah, it's okay. And then once it reached a point in the movie, I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm actually interested to see where this person's journey goes. And by the end, I was like, you know what? I'm glad I saw it. And I can understand why some people would appreciate this kind of storytelling or even the way that this story plays out, because it is very similar to something like that, where there's not much really going on in terms of the story. And again, the antagonist, as I mentioned, is very much like Time, where there's not really much. There's no like clear antagonist, and I'm fine that there wasn't. I'm okay that it wasn't, but I wish that there was something more to the film to grab hold of me in a more internal way, outside of the cinematography being gorgeous and the performances are really solid for what they are. But yeah, that was really the only thing I took away from the movie personally. And when I finished the movie, and I'm like, okay, like I'm kind of like I really do hope that we're able to get more out of this, because I'm not really able to bring too much to it. Although I will say the one aspect of the film I did admire about the movie, and it kind of brought a little bit of memories of this, in that I traveled to Hawaii last November. So it was like November of last year. And we went to the Pearl Harbor Memorial. And I remembered that they talked about not just the incident of Pearl Harbor, but also the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I believe. And they talked about there was like a little like all these stories that how they were affected by the bomb, or how they were affected by Pearl Harbor in whatever fashion it may be, good or bad. And as I was watching the first like 15 minutes or so, even like when they were during that protest that was going on, and the couple lose each other within, they're trying to find each other, I kept thinking about, there was a story I read of a girl who had died of radiation poisoning, and was remembered through the story of more than 1,000 origami cranes she folded before her death, and her name was Sadako Sasaki. I could be mispronouncing her name wrong, but I remember it was something like that I'm like, wow, it actually like it just kind of gave me memories of like, oh yeah, I remember that story about that. And that is something that I did appreciate about this, was that even though it is mostly about these two characters, and how war kind of affects their lives, especially with we find out through the bar that Emmanuelle Riva's character had lost her it was like former lover or former husband in war, and it shows the consequences of what happens of this war that went on, so to speak. And I thought, again, like I would have liked to have seen, again, I just kept thinking to myself, I'm like, I would like to appreciate this more outside of, again, the cinematography and the performances, if I was more invested in the story, or even more invested with the characters, because I feel like there is a way you could do this kind of story and attach and have just enough for me to get along to the film. Although I will admit that these films, they, unlike a lot of Hollywood bullshit we get nowadays, this is only 90 minutes long. Not that this is bad or anything, it's not. But whenever a movie like it's like 90 minutes long, it's in and out, and it's not like another Lone Ranger where it's like you could have told the story in 90 minutes and you're telling it in like 2.5 hours, or I don't know, like all these other, like, even recent studio fare we've had where it's like, why did you tell this story in 3 hours when you could have just told it in 2, or maybe just 100 minutes easily. But so yeah, that's pretty much all I got out of it mostly. But I do want to hear more of your thoughts on it, if you don't mind, in terms of like what were some aspects about the film that you really appreciated. And I apologize if I deflated your moment, if I did already.
I love hearing different emotions about films. Like, even I love the fact that this is the beauty of art. There is a film, two people watching it, and you could totally connect to a film, and another person would feel like, I'm so disconnected from this. Like, what the hell? Because to me, this film works to me on an emotional and intellectual level. These are the kind of conversation, I know this is going to sound pretentious, but, to hell.
Yeah.
These are the kind of conversations that I have when I'm in love. You know what I mean? Like, the idea of those weird, even the weird way of talking. Like, I lie, but I tell the truth. I love you. I want to devour you. I hate it when you talk about. This is the pretentious shit that I go through a lot of times because I'm a poet. So even when I'm texting, it's kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like, like I just realized that one of my exes told me, like, oh my god, Jaylan, but the way you text is weird. And then when I was like later on analyzing and talking to my sister about it, she's like, yeah, but we can't blame him. You know what I mean? So the idea of this pretentiousness of it all and the idea of this dialogue kind of like cut into chunks, kind of sometimes not making sense and doesn't feel like real people talking, because sometimes there is an existence that is very manufactured in the way that it is within a context that makes it very, I don't know, artsy, but also you could feel it trying to be artsy. Like, I don't feel this film is smooth. It's not going in a way that makes you go with the flow, unlike even some other films. But I discovered that the way, or what I love about the French nouvelle vague is that it has this air of pretentiousness about it. It has this air of disconnection about it. It's the way that it's creating a relationship or a way of communicating. It felt like they weren't talking. Like in the beginning, it didn't even feel like a conversation between two people. It felt to me like they were taking parts of letters they have written to each other and then putting it as voiceover. So it didn't feel like a genuine conversation. It didn't feel
Yeah.
like a genuine anything. Although the bodies felt genuine. The way those bodies were shot and the way that scene was extended, that felt genuine. So I really like the dialogue. In a way, I really like the interaction. I also like the cultural difference, and this is something that I totally connect with. The idea that both of you could be looking at a war differently. The way she would
Yeah.
tell him, I feel the war, and he would tell her, no. I understand the war, and he would tell her, no. I know what happened in Hiroshima, and he would be like, no. Because even if you feel like someone you love is compassionate with what you're going through, they're still not going through it the way you are. They are the other, and they will always be the other. So I really liked and connected to that. And I felt that the way Alain René did it was very beautiful. It felt like, yes, Marguerite Duras, whatever, script was a little bit, probably could have been, maybe could have been different, but I really liked the cut off sensation of it all. It felt like chunks of speech. It felt like detached speech patterns more than an actual, genuine, engaging conversation to me. And I like that as well, because you could be texting, let's say, someone and then go mid thought away, or just ghost someone for a week or something, and then come back and realize that, wow, but this conversation seems battered, bruised and cut at the ends. Why did I do this? So this film felt like that to me, more like a collage. And I like that because I like experimental cinema. You know what I mean? Because I like cinema that feels a little way othering me, alienating me from it. Not in a way that seems like we are doing it on purpose, but in the hands of someone like Alain René, it felt genuine. It felt like maybe this is the way he sees the world, the way he sees those lovers. Maybe this is how they envisioned the story. But I really, really liked it. I dug it. Probably from other people, I would have felt like, ugh, no, thank you. I don't understand. Go
Yeah.
on. Goodbye,
Yeah.
bitches.
Please get away from
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
I'm
get
pretty
a life.
strange toward
Oh.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're so
Um,
pretentious. Oh.
but the other thing is that I do encourage audiences to try other films and see what works for you and what doesn't, even in other genres. Like, I like hell. Like, I, yeah, I agree. I love Birdman to death, but I have to agree. Yes, it is on purpose, but like it's serving a purpose to the narrative. Like it isn't just being pretentious for the sake of being pretentious. Like Inuritu is actually serving a point to the narrative, to that, and he's commenting about what about the themes of that movie, and even ties it in with even the personal relationships with those characters. And I like I said, I already mentioned like Cleo from 5 to 7. I was surprised. I was really interested in that movie. I surprisingly enjoyed Breathless. Run Lola Run is another like
I
kind of like
love.
experimental type movie. Although I will admit that they I could talk about that for another time because there's other things I could say that about. But like these other experimental type movies I really admire and appreciate so long and like I can appreciate it to a point, but there has to be more to it that still gets me invested. Like,
I
you
totally
know,
understand.
like a movie, like another movie I'm gonna bring up, and I think I've already mentioned this like a bunch of times in other podcasts, but like Running Scared is a film that I understand does not
Paul
work for a lot of
Walker.
people. Yeah, and
I
what's
love this
funny,
film, by the way.
what
I
but
really like it.
what's funny about that movie is that even when I was rewatching it, and unfortunately I made the bad decision of showing it to my grandma, um,
No,
was
Matthew.
yeah, was like I was rewatching that point, and I'm that movie, and at a certain point I'm like, what? Like, yes, I agree, it's flawed. It's a bit too dark for what it's going for, but there's something to this movie that works for me, and it's really that Paul Walker performance. Like, there was at least something there I could attach myself to and be like, I understand his frustrations,
And
I
Vera
understand the
Farmiga.
performance. Yeah, and yeah,
She
even the other.
was wonderful in this film. She didn't
Yeah,
act like an action film. She was like gutting it out of her. She was
yeah.
great.
So like that's an example of a movie where it's like I usually wouldn't vibe with this kind of movie, but it's because of the performances there, and in this like weird situation I can kind of buy. And even though I buy the performances there in this movie with Hiroshima Mon Amour, again, I couldn't quite connect with it, and I'm not expecting it to be like an action-packed thriller or be like a quick,
Let's save
bit.
Hiroshima.
I'm sorry.
Let's save Hiroshima. I'm beginning
Yeah,
to envision how it
yeah,
could go action, and I
yeah.
love this version.
But
Like,
like,
let's do Hiroshima Mon Amour too. I,
but I don't. But like at the same time though, is that I need a bit more to it than it is. Like, because to me it's very much. It is kind of surface level for me in terms of like what I could appreciate or really respect out of it. But if you love the movie, more power to you. Um, I did also want to talk about, because I don't know if I heard. I know we've already described some of the opening and even some of the other scenes of the movie. But what were your thoughts on the cinematography in the movie?
I loved it. It was
Yeah.
beautiful. I can't believe it wasn't nominated. This is why I feel like, yes, probably you might not have nominated the performances. Probably they were kind of weird. Maybe not the direction, but the cinematography, man. Are they serious? This is some of the most gorgeous cinematography ever. When they were in the museum, those corpses, this rottenness, and I mean the opening scene alone, the scenes where they're fusing with each other in intimate scenes. I don't know, probably because it's not, like shots that are very impressive and stuff. But I feel like cinematography at the intimate should be appreciated more.
Well, yeah, and we'll definitely talk about what ended up getting into the lineup in just a moment. But yeah, no, that was like even throughout the whole film, as much as I was not really engaged with the film overall, like that was another aspect I already mentioned before that I really liked. And one of my favorite shots was actually in the bar where it's a two shot where you see Emmanuelle Riva on the left, and then you see the oh god E.G. Okada on
AJ
the right,
Okada, uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and you see her with like a lot like a big light on her, and he's submerged in darkness. And
Very
while
past lives, as you said.
yeah,
Yes.
and what I like about it is I believe they were talking about like she's still referring to, you know, how she, what happened to her, what happened to her former lover, and it almost kind of ties in a weird way. It kind of ties itself back into the opening about how even though she went to the museum, it's like I know Hiroshima. Like, no, you don't. You don't
No, you
know
don't.
about this at all. And it kind of ties into it's like, yeah, you don't know what I went through either in terms of like how this war affected me.
And my
Too.
grief.
And
Yes.
yeah, her
Yes.
grief, and that was something I appreciated from a visual standpoint that I thought was quite good, and was something that I appreciated a lot. And yeah, it was just really stunning cinematography in of itself, and uh, yeah, and what's even shocking too is that this is Alan Renee's, I think,
Feature, I think. Feature
yeah, his
debut? Oh
feature
my god.
debut. And he had also done. I'm looking through his filmography right now. He had done. Well, the other film he did that got nominated for an Oscar nod for a lone screenplay nod was My American Uncle. So that could have been another potential we could have talked about directed
Yes.
by him.
Why didn't we?
Um, War is Over. I'm looking through it. Also, Jesus. Okay, yeah, this guy got a It's a lone screenplay nod for The War is Over as well.
This poor guy.
And yeah, and what's even funny is that I looked at his filmography, or at least his his like awards credit. While Night and Fog won the documentary prize, he was not eligible for it because they didn't list him as a nominee on there. I think at the time, he did win a BAFTA for what was it? It was like for Hiroshima Mon Amour as a UN award, and yeah, he won it for this movie. Which
Wow.
is, UN award. That's a category that they don't offer anymore.
Exactly. I feel like this is very war kind of political award more than an actual film award. A UN award? What is this?
Yeah, I don't know what this is, but I'll
Exactly.
look it up later. I know I should have done my research, but we had a bit of a time crunch, and there was only so much time I was able to do for this. But yeah, but no, but I look forward to some of his other films, and I'll definitely see My American Uncle down the road because
We have to and discuss
yeah.
it, you and I.
Yeah, if you want to, yeah,
I would
it'll
love
probably
to.
have to be like a next year episode. We'll do. All right,
We
so
have to.
So live on the episode, we got Jaylan on for the next episode for this director.
My American
here.
uncle. We have to.
So that's TBD. So we'll let you know when that episode is. But yeah. So anyways, yeah, I don't like I said. I don't really have much to say because really I've said. All that I need to say about it is that I respect the movie. I admire for what it's doing, even if it's not really appealing to my taste. My limited taste as a simple-minded film critic on a podcast talking about a lot of obscured movies. So, but overall though, I respected enough of it, and I'm glad this kind of film exists.
Me too.
I mean, again, it's got to be a shit ton better than something like Transformers 4, where it's like
Why do
3
these
hours
films
of
exist?
nonsense, and it's doing the exact same thing over and over again, and there's no variation for it whatsoever, and yeah, it's just garbage. So
Exactly.
that is.
Why do these films exist? These are the films that I feel like, ugh, why? All those
Yeah.
Marvel sequels and prequels and hequels and shequels and
And then with Joker 2 bombing at the box office, is like, yeah, Core Jefferson's Oscar speech is really coming to bite you in the ass, isn't it, guys? Huh?
definitely.
You may not like American fiction, but at least he had a point.
Exactly.
So,
The guy is right.
So yeah, but yeah. So anyways, I'll let you stand on your soapbox, and I'll let you take the floor for the next couple minutes in terms of like any other final thoughts you want to call upon, or any other last remarks you want to say about the movie before we get into the awards prospects for this film.
I I just want to say that I understand why it lost, especially when I rewatched, the film that won that year that we're gonna be talking about, because I don't feel like I love films because I just love art because it's not for everybody, but unlike, like the person you are dating or your family, it's not gonna hurt so much. Like, I don't understand people who get into feuds because, like, oh yeah, like I love In the Mood for Love, for example. And yes, of course, I get so heated talking about it, but I'm not gonna lose, like people over it. But you might lose people over your choice in a partner or something because, they clashed with your family. So I love the ability of art to divide us, but at the same time, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, it actually brings us together because we can still talk about why it divides us, or why we find it differently, or why it hits it differently. And I love the idea that a film could hit a person and another person would be like, I don't know, okay. I just love this. I love this so much because our experiences are different. The way we went through life is different. And this film probably hit me that hard because of the way that I live, which is in a way kind of bizarre and serpentine. And I find myself in bits and pieces of films and books and stuff because I think I manufacture my life itself as a literary piece, if that makes any sense. So this film to me feels like something I could manufacture myself on, like I could project myself on. This idea of misunderstanding despite the love, this idea of carrying the weight of something like a city in your heart, and the idea that two people might not really understand the gravity of something that happened. Not just war, but the tragedy, the post trauma of a war, for example, and how it differs even if you're an outsider, a foreigner living in a place in a war conflicted zone, and how it hits you different than an original person from that war conflicted zone area. So this is why I love this film. This is why I encourage people to watch it even if they hate it, because I think that we should watch the films even that alienate us more than the films that make us feel connected.
Yeah. Again, yeah, I agree. Yeah, if nothing else, you should at least try to seek out some films that don't really, that are like that are trying to do something new, and you're not going for the same bullshit movies. And don't get me wrong, I like some of the Marvel stuff films that we've gotten, even some of the comic book stuff. But even I'm at a point where I'm like, come on, you got to bring something, just a little bit new to the table. Come on. So yeah, so that's pretty much all we have for the movie itself. We could just dive into. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but I wanted to ask in regards to the awards section for this. Do you think this was worthy of its sole writing nomination, and would you have nominated for something else as well?
Probably would have nominated definitely the cinematography. Definitely. Would have, but I don't see him getting a director, like cred or director nod as an award nod. But I would have, if it was me, I would have definitely nominated 3: cinematography, script, and direction. Maybe Emmanuelle Riva if the competition wasn't that big, because I think this year who won? Elizabeth Taylor for Butterfield or whatever,
Yeah.
which is a terrible movie, a terrible performance from her, and even she kind of like felt pissed that she won for that. So yeah, why not Emmanuelle then? Could have at least nominated the girl. So this is what I think should have been nominated for it.
Yeah, I'm looking through right now. Yeah, she won for Battlefield 8, which I've never seen, but I'll
It's a
get around
terrible
to that.
film.
I still want to see it down the road, just to be like, I'm curious to know
You have
what you
to.
got. Yeah, just to be like, it's almost like Extremely Odd, Incredibly Close, where it's like, I gotta know. I know this may end up killing me, but I just gotta know.
Exactly, that's the
Um,
thing.
and yeah, it was also weird that they nominated Never on Sunday and Psycho for Not for Picture. Um,
I don't understand awards, man. I tell you, I don't understand it. It sometimes doesn't work for
I,
me.
well, and I mean, the Alamo and Elmer Gantry got in for picture. I mean, Elmer Gantry, I was told, was somewhat of a popular movie at the time, and I was also told that was apparent. Like, Burt Lancaster gave this kind of incredible performance that was on the lengths of like Day-Lewis from There Will Be Blood, where it's like a transformation. Like he grows more and more darker, as seedier as a character as the film progresses. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what got him the Oscar. All right, so that explains why it won the Oscars it got. And then I'm looking through not documentary, cinematography, black and white, and it was The Apartment, The Facts of Life, Inherent the Wind, Psycho, and Sons and Lovers were the nominees.
The Apartment for cinematography, though, like I love The Apartment, but for cinematography, what did it contribute?
There's
For
a couple of
me,
shots.
I don't know.
There's a couple of shots, but I
Exactly,
could think
but
of.
it's a very likable, lovable film. Like it's very well made. But I'm just gonna shush until we get to it because I can talk about it a lot.
Yeah. But Yeah, but yeah, as far as me, I'm fine with the screenplay nod. What's interesting though is that um, I think the moment I said this out loud to some people I've been talking with, the moment it like this kind of thing has stayed with me. And I'm this is the one benefit of the show that I do kind of like is that it gives me a bit more of an ego boost when predicting upcoming Oscars, especially when I'm predicting
Ooh.
like lone nominations. Whenever we get a film that gets like a lone acting nod or a lone screenplay nod, their chances in other fields were probably on the bubble. So take, for example, After Sun with Paul Mescal. He got the lone actor nod that year, and even though that screenplay category was kind of set in place of like that was the five that was going to be after BAFTA pronounced it, After Sun was still at like number 6, number 7, like right on the bubble of getting in for screenplay. Same thing for picture and director. Um, but I feel like this might have been the type of movie. I'll probably have to do more digging, but my guess is that from what I did the research on, this seems like the kind of movie that was like right on the bubble of maybe getting into like lead actress or lead actor and some of the craft categories we mentioned, like director and cinematography, because it got the DGA nod from director, so that's not nothing. Um, and yet I still feel that it was probably just on the bubble, and it was like, we can't get you in these acting categories, and director's really competitive, and cinematography's competitive too. So the barest minimum, we can try to throw you like an original screenplay nod, and there you go. Have a nice day, and bye-bye. Um, but I think that's probably why it got what it got for its nomination. And uh, and yeah, so I'm curious to know yeah, so I think that's why that happened.
Don't you
So
think it could be also because of the subject matter?
that
I think
too.
it made them uncomfortable, I think, because they're speaking from a very different standpoint about, a very sensitive subject, especially back in the day. Like now you have more and more political freedom in outlining your different or your alternative way of seeing the war, but I think back then, no. The mainstream had to be the mainstream.
And I'm looking at it right now. This was also back when DGA had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Am I reading this right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This had 10 nominees for
What?
DGA. 10. Yeah. So let me
Oh
read
my
off.
god.
So here's where all the nominees for DGA. The Apartment won. Elmer Gantry, Sunrise Cambo Bello, Sink the Bismarck, that's what it was. Can, The Dark at the Top of the Stairs, Our Man in Havana, Hiroshima Mon Amour, Please Don't Eat the Daisies, and Psycho. And the only two that went on to the DGA were Psycho and The Apartment. Never on Sunday, Sons and Lovers and the Sundowners never got into DGA. So that's very interesting. So yeah, it probably was subject matter as to like why it didn't get anything else. It was just like, here's your
Exactly.
lone screenplay nod. There is some respect here, and that's it. That's all you're getting. So yeah, but
So what are you
anyways,
predicting will be a lone award nomination this year?
we'll talk about it off air. Because I don't want to keep this episode dated. Or have these episodes become dated, or because it's almost like a coin flip where it's like, I don't know, I think this might happen, maybe this will happen, and then it's like, nope, doesn't happen. Oh wow, that was a surprise. Like I remember when I had oh god, who was his name? We was on the podcast for, I think it was Ben Miller. He was on the podcast for the Purple Rose of Cairo, and he was talking about how he wasn't sure if Poor Things was gonna be able to win production design. I said, you never know, and then boom, it won production design. I'm like, damn it, wow.
Yes,
And I was
Matthew.
and I was stupid enough to not predict it at the last minute. I switched it to Barbie because of my stupid rewatch. I thought, oh well, maybe I'll win production design. Nope.
Oh.
Um, but yeah, so that's a lesson I learned the hard way. But yeah, so yeah, we'll talk about off screen or off air
All
what that
right.
is.
Haha. Mm-hmm.
But as far as the other like main competitor of who it lost to, I think you might want to take this away. And would you care to explain what the film was that this film we're talking about lost to for original screenplay?
The apartment?
Yes. So
I love The Apartment. And by the way, I love Hiroshima Mon Amour, but I really like The Apartment. It's a brilliant film and it's a brilliant script. So I wouldn't feel bad that it lost to The Apartment, you know what I mean? Because what a script. How lively, how beautiful, how intense, you know what I mean? Like it's a lovely story. It's a great story. It's a very timely story. And I think it tells a lot about power too. So I don't know. Do you want me to like tell you the story, what it's about? Because I'm not really good at that.
No, it's essentially yeah, it was about a oh god, what the hell was his job? Insurance clerk. He's an insurance clerk trying to rise in the company by letting his executives use his apartment for their affairs. And he the main character played by Jack Lemmon. Office politics and his own romantic hopes complicate matters.
Exactly.
This was my first watch ever of The Apartment. I'd held on to this movie for about a couple of years. I think I got it maybe about 2-3 years ago on Blu-ray. I never got around to it, and I almost did a couple of times, but I was just too sick or just wasn't in the right mindset. So I finally threw it on, and I enjoyed it very much. It's my, I think, like third or fourth Billy Wilder film I'd seen. I'd watched Some Like It Hot for Zeta's podcast, which I don't think exists anymore. And then I'd seen Double Indemnity at Stevenson University. I saw Ace in the Hole for this podcast. All really solid films overall. For
Beautiful.
Billy Wilder, and he's a really good filmmaker, in and of himself. I understand why Jack Lemmon lost the Oscar for lead actor, just because he is really good in the movie, and everyone in the cast is great too. But I think because of he just won a couple years ago for a supporting actor Oscar. I think it was for Mr. Roberts. I could be wrong. It just seemed like he wasn't like this power. Like there was no need to be like, ooh, we got to give him an Oscar for this and so on. Even though he was in a Best Picture frontrunner. But I also do wonder if usually when we get these kind of films that get Save for Everything Ever Rolled Once. Whenever we get a film nowadays where we get a film winning picture, director, screenplay, and they all go to the same filmmaker, it's usually the filmmaker that gets the most clout or the most like talk about for the movie. Like, oh my god, like the way that they told the story, the way they directed it, the way they took on such ambitious of an idea they did. Even Return of the King was like that, although that got no acting nods. Parasite was another surprise where it beat out Sam Mendes for 1917, which, holy crap, I can't believe that still happened. But I do wonder and even Birdman was another one where it's like, can Keaton win for this? And then Michael Keaton did win the Oscar and lost to Eddie Redmayne. So it's always that kind of mindset of like, it's the director that's really the big showcase for said film. And hence why the film is able to get these three major wins, but not any of the acting wins or of the two acting wins. And then Shirley MacLaine, she lost because she lost to Elizabeth Taylor for Butterfield 8 and
Yeah.
Butterfield 8. Yeah, it was just like, even if you didn't like the performance, it was like Elizabeth Taylor might be dead and she's she had to go through this like tracheotomy and had like pneumonia, and it was like, all right, let's give her the Oscar because she's been nominated a couple times before. We don't know if we're ever going to give her an Oscar again. And then she won an Oscar like what, like almost like not even half a decade, like a couple of years later for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf,
Which is riveting.
It's I just find that so funny. that they did that. But that's always the case with some of these people, like, oh, I don't know if we're ever going to give this person an Oscar down the road, and they're like, bam, they win another one. So The Apartment's really good. And I also think, though, even though I understand where you're coming from, though, whereas like there wasn't really much in The Apartment cinematography that warranted the nomination, I think it was more just because of how much they love the film overall.
That's the thing.
Because we've seen films in the past, like we had just seen Oppenheimer get in for makeup, which was like a really like makeup
Wow.
nomination, like, or even costumes is another one where it's like, really, costumes? Okay.
Why?
And it just shows you how much the Academy loved the movie. Hell, even when Everything Ever Rolled Once got into to costumes, I knew it was winning Best Picture. I was like, "Yep, it's got it. Don't need to overthink this. It's gonna win Best Picture at the Oscars because nothing else
Definitely.
is gonna beat this." And that was like a weird category that was like on the fringe of like maybe this could happen, maybe it couldn't. So that's usually a sign of like, a Best Picture, front runner, and being like, wait, it got into here in this like random category like sound. It got nominated for, and it's like really like it's good sound work, but it's nothing
Yeah.
like outstanding. But yeah, so it happens. Although it's got to be a shit ton better than fucking Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, oh, let's nominate this for sound mixing and sound editing, and it's like, why? What was the point outside of the Live Aid concert?
Are
Which
you
even
guys
then is
serious?
fine.
Exactly. This
Um,
whole film didn't deserve crap.
yeah, I could rant about that all day, but we won't on this episode. Yeah, so that's what happened with that, and yeah, as far as The Apartment goes, yeah, it's just a really solid movie. I was very impressed with how at times Billy Wilder was restrained, and the other thing that really impressed me about the movie was the use of foreshadowing, like setup and build off and payoff. And he does it a couple of times in the film with like he did it with, we're gonna spoil some of it, guys, sorry, but with the yeah, it's like 1960 it came out, so it's on you. But he does it with the sleeping pills. He does it with the gun, the mentioning of the gun, and it's paid off really, really effectively. And especially the gun scene, right? That, oh my god, that was like totally caught me in a left field. I was like, okay, I did not expect that. And yeah, it's just the kind of directing I miss from modern films nowadays. Like I just wish more blockbusters and even more films kept doing this instead of just drilling it in our heads. It'll be like, remember this moment, or we got to bring up exposition that's like totally unnecessary, that it's like you could have just done it with visuals. That's it. You don't need to spell it out for us. But I guess
Modern
Hollywood,
audiences are stupid. This is
yeah,
what they
yeah,
think.
they want to treat them like babies. It's like Joker. It's like it would have been so great if you didn't reveal that like she was an figment of his imagination the whole time. Like go through all those flashes. Like we could have just picked it up on our own.
Exactly.
By the
It
way
didn't
she
need us.
reacted. It's like that would have been great. But no, it's like, oh, why are you treating this R-rated film for babies? Oh yeah, I forgot. It's a comic book movie.
Exactly.
It's kind of the same thing with Deadpool and Wolverine, which I had my issues with that, and I thought it was okay. But the problems I did have, it was like, why are you treating us like babies? Oh yeah, it's because it's directed by Sean Levy. That's why. And it's also produced by Marvel. So yeah.
Goodbye.
This is the kind of thing I would expect from like a PG or a PG-13 Marvel film. But anyways,
But not this, yeah.
I digress.
Totally agree.
But yeah, no, The Apartment's great. You should check it out if you haven't. Worthy of its Best Picture, Director win, and Screenplay win. Yeah, and if nothing else, I do want to try out to, and also while it's, well, yeah, this will be out by like this Friday. While it's still the month of spooky scares with Halloween, watch Psycho, please, if you haven't already. I don't know why you haven't, but you should.
Exactly.
It's like it's really good. And even if you know the twist, it's really fun to watch just to know where all the clues are and such. It's really fun. But anyways, I digress.
And very well made.
Yeah, Alfred Hitchcock, great director he was. And yeah, I don't really have much else to add in terms of this year overall. It just seemed like, yeah, The Apartment was sort of this big, yeah, it was like a juggernaut of a movie, so to speak, I guess, for Oscar voters, just because it got 10 nominations and it won 5 Oscars. It was a box office hit, and yeah, and really, like, if there was any like runner-up for picture, I think it probably was Elmer Gantry, just because of the 2 acting wins and adapted screenplay. But yeah, and so there wasn't really much else for Hiroshima Mon Amour to get in outside of its lone screenplay nod, but that happens sometimes. So yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts you had on the awards race in terms of Hiroshima Mon Amour or anything on The Apartment?
No, probably because that I just feel like a script like that deserves to win. So you don't feel bad. You know what I mean? Like, also think about it. It's a very experimental film, Hiroshima Mon Amour. So when you compare it to a good, solid script, but it's a script, in the eye of what I envision the Academy people, I would imagine that their idea of like a film is more traditional than probably what a lot of us think. So definitely makes sense that The Apartment would win. Also, it's a very good script. So deep down, I feel awesome that it won. They don't make scripts like that these days. The flow of the dialogue itself, the way the film was built, the structure itself, it's a very good script.
Yeah, and yeah, it's not really like we never actually see any of the like affairs themselves happen, so to speak, or any like foul language. Like you could pretty much show this to like a kid and they'd be okay with it, you know.
And they wouldn't
Um,
understand a lot of the things, yes.
yeah, they'd probably be bored of their minds, but they're like whatever. And actually, yeah, it's a good Christmas movie too because it takes place around the holidays. At least by the end, it
Yes.
does. So yeah, enjoyed the movie overall. I recommend it, and yeah. But yeah, no, that's pretty much it in terms of the show. Because I've got nothing else for it other than I'm glad I saw it, but what could you do for Hiroshima Mon Amour? But yeah. So anyways, so once again, I want to, as we're wrapping up, I want to thank you for dedicating your time to being here on the show. Before we sign off, is there anything you'd like to plug in or where listeners can follow you along?
Definitely on Instagram, I'm Jaylan Salman. On Twitter, I'm Jaylan_Salah. And I have my YouTube channel, The J Days Reviews, where I interview artists and review films with fellow cinephiles. So just tag in.
Awesome. All right. You can follow me and the show through Linktree under @Matthew995, where you can follow along on all my social media accounts, such as Twitter and Letterboxd. On the same site, I've provided a link for where you can listen to more episodes of the show. And if you're interested in being in the hot seat, let me know, and hopefully we can arrange that happening soon. One quick note I do want to bring up before I forget. I unfortunately will not be able to go to the AFI Film Fest. Scheduling has prevented me from going, and there's like I'll still be going to San Diego and going to LA to hang out for the weekend with my cousin there, but we're going to be doing a couple of things differently. We're going to try to catch a screening of Anora there, so we'll see how that turns out. If we can get tickets, because I know that a couple of my buddies said that they're having a bit of a hard time trying to get tickets to in LA screenings, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'll be there for the whole weekend in like another week or so. So I'll be flying out to San Diego and then flying back, and we'll see what I watch. I might get caught up on some of the newer releases. Hell, I might even watch some of the old films like Spartacus. I might get around to if I get a chance. Apparently, the Paddington Bear movies are on Amazon, so I'll be able to get around to them down the road maybe. So we'll see what I watch. I don't know. All I know is that we'll be recording. I will be recording the next episode in about a week's time. So probably around this time I'll be recording it. I just won't drop it until November 1st when I come back. So just keep that in mind for anyone out there who's looking out for the next episode. But I look forward to telling you guys what that is. I cannot say what it is yet, but yeah. But yeah, after that though, we got a couple episodes left, and then I'll be taking a break in December. And when we get closer to December, I will be sharing more news in regards to some updates for the show starting 2025. And I hope I think it'll be a fun addition to the show outside of, the lone screenplay nominees. It'll be a fun addition. We'll discuss more about, but that's all I'll say for now at the moment, because I don't want to ruin the surprise yet. And the more I talk, the more I'm going to get that chance to open it. So anyway, enough of that. So yeah, in the meantime, we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and we hope to see you at the movies. Take care, guys.